In the Louis Armstrong archives at Queen's in New York, among all the fascinating memorabilia, including his scrapbooks, his hand-decorated tape boxes, unpublished manuscripts, gold records and gold-plated trumpets, I found a key to his personal tastes in music.
And I got every kind of music in my files on tape because I buy the albums and I put them on tape so they'll stay, you know. So we enjoy from the churches and the funeral marches and everything. That's the only way you're going to stay in music is to enjoy everybody else.
Louis' index to his record collection reveals a wide range of tastes and styles. In an interview with Life magazine in 1966, he spoke of getting a Victrola around 1917 or 18 and buying records by Caruso, Galli-Curci and Tetrazzini, as well as the only jazz records then available by the original Dixieland Jazz Band. Most of these are included, catalogued by Louis alongside such show business figures as Maurice Chevalier, Eartha Kitt, Al Jolson, Marilyn Monroe, Harry Lauder, Edith Piaf, Gertrude Lawrence, Danny Kaye and a large amount of Sinatra.
Let me find out if this likable young man with the horn will lay a little of that sauce on me. Satch, you see, I'm planning to knock a few bars of Blue Skies on him. What's your plan? Suppose you could kind of prod me along a little bit with a little of that stuff?
Well, you know it's in the bag. You know it's in the bag.
Well, then lay it on me. Blue skies smiling at me. Nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebirds, they're all singing a song. Nothing but bluebirds all day long. I never saw the sun shining so bright, and I never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by when you're in love, my how they fly. Blue days, all of them gone. Nothing but blue skies from now on. Lay it on them, side.
You also find quite a bit of Latin American music. Louis liked to play along to such records in his dressing room. I think that was stunning. His shelves even had spoken word recordings of Shaw and Shakespeare, read by the likes of Charles Laughton. Many of his jazz contemporaries, such as Duke Ellington, Art Tatum, Red Nichols, Billie Holiday and Nat Cole are included, of course. Jelly Roll Morton's Library of Congress set, a 2-volume concert by George Lewis and Bunk Johnson's Last Testament no doubt reminded him of his down-home roots. There's plenty of classical material, with albums of Baroque trumpet and such composers as Bizet, Offenbach, Wagner, Mozart, Shostakovich, Verdi.
Do you dig Rachmaninoff?
On and off.
Rimsky?
Of course. Ravel and Gustav Mahler.
Yeah, but don't forget Fat Swallow.
I wouldn't do that. List adds a twist that you can't resist.
Yeah, put this on that list.
And of course there's comedy, from such Harlem favourites as Red Fox and Moms Mabley, as well as a signed Burt Williams 78. Naturally, we also find Guy Lombardo and his Royal Canadians, whose saccharine sound Louis always praised, and whose society orchestra influenced some of Armstrong's early work. Somehow all these elements add up to make the international entertainer Louis became. When he appeared on Desert Island Discs during his last British tour in 1968, Roy Plumley asked,
"What do you want your 8 records to do for you on the island? Remind you of the past, cheer you up, bring you voices of friends? Well, what was the reason for choosing these discs?"
Well, you have all kind of reasons. I mean, the people you love through life, and the chick. I mean, the women and men you like through, and the things you do. My chauvinist and the horn. Don't care where it is. I still have my horn with me. Don't care what I
yes, we've arranged for you to have that round your neck when you're shipwrecked.
Yeah.
He included Bye Bye Blues by Guy Lombardo, People by Barbara Streisand, they'd just filmed Hello Dolly together, his friend Hoagy Carmichael's New Orleans, by another pal, Bobby Hackett, and the rest were all Louis' own, ending with his recent hit Wonderful World. For reading matter, he chose his autobiography. It was Louis' broad range of listening that probably made him so adaptable throughout his long recording career, which must have been what the head of Decca saw in him in the late 30s.
Jack Capp had come from Chicago, and contrary to what people have written about him, he knew a great deal about recording and jazz recordings. His father had his own record store in Chicago.
Louis' biographer, John Chilton.
He knew a great deal about it, and he was sharp enough to see that Louis had this amazing versatility, and recorded him with the Mills Brothers, which is... At the time, people started criticising Louis, saying he was just screaming out high notes and blasting away. Here he goes and records with a vocal group with a guitar and someone imitating a tuba, as it were, and yet makes delightful music.
Without my walking stick, I'd go insane. Can't look my best, I'd feel undressed without my cane. Must have my walking stick, 'cause it may rain. And when it pours, can't be outdoors without my cane. If I ever left my house without my walking stick, it would just be something I could never explain. The thing that makes me click on Lover's Lane would go for naught if I were caught without my cane. my walking stick, I'd go insane. Can't look my best, feel undressed without my cane. Must have my walking stick, 'cause it may rain. When it pours, can't be outdoors without my cane.
If I ever left my house without my walking stick, it would just be something I could never explain.
The thing that makes me click on Lover's Lane would go for naught if I were caught without my cane.
Louis and the Mills Brothers with an obscure song by Irving Berlin. Louis never forgot his mentor, and during this busy period on a tour of the South, his old boss, by then running a fruit and vegetable stand and working in a pool hall, came to see him. Many years later, Louis took the trouble to visit Joe Oliver's widow in New Orleans.
Hello. Hello, everybody. All the gang, all Louis bunch. This is Stella Oliver, the wife of the late King Oliver. I'm so happy I'm crying. He and Lucille is leaving this afternoon. I loved him so very, very much. I was very happy having, and we had a marvelous time. That's what we did. I hope it happened again soon.
That meal you put on last night was a real get-out. You know, that big deal, red beans, rice, fried chicken, and then we took some Swiss crisps.
Everybody was working at one time.
Everybody burping, and this morning I must have played Yankee Doodle there.
The Armstrong Big Band, under the direction of Louis Russell, although not as heavily publicised as the popular white orchestras of the day, such as Goodman and Dorsey, toured and recorded constantly. Louis also got a radio series.
Fleischmann's Yeast presents Harlem. The makers of Fleischmann's Yeast bring you another fast and furious program featuring music by Louis Armstrong, the trumpet king of swing, comedy by Eddie Green and G.G. James, with words by Octavius Roy Cohen. And now, the headgate himself, Louis Armstrong and his orchestra.
Now, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is old Satchmo talking to you, folks. And the boys are swinging Dinah, yes, Take that last ball down, boy.
That was from a worn acetate made in 1937, but the power still comes across. Joe Glaser wasn't averse to hiring his star out to front another band if schedules allowed. Here we find him with Leith Stevens Orchestra on NBC's Saturday Night Swing Club the following year. It's a fairly stolid orchestration, but Satchmo makes as much out of it as he can. By the time World War II was underway, the New Orleans revival was starting, and the bop revolution was taking over. Perhaps through the influence of the book Jazzmen, some of the mythology of early New Orleans jazz was starting to appeal to listeners. The Bunk Johnson Band came to New York and were feted by the media, and Kid Ory's band were launched on Orson Welles' Mercury Theatre radio show in Hollywood. So an enterprising producer decided to put a film together recreating the closing days of Storyville. Louis and Billie Holiday were signed, along with other leading black musicians. All seemed well when Downbeat magazine disclosed that a second unit crew was filming parades and funerals in New Orleans in autumn '46. Unfortunately, when the movie hit the screen the following spring, it included every cliché in the book, including the old jazz versus long hair music plot. Billie Holiday was humiliated by being cast as a maid to the white opera singer heroine, and Louis' hand-picked band gets to play for those patronising white folks. Nevertheless, there were still some interesting musical moments, most of them covered by inane dialogue. Many years after the film's release, some of the complete outtakes were discovered, and they give a good opportunity to hear Armstrong back in a small group setting, playing tunes he didn't normally feature. First, we hear a fragment of Brahms' Cradle Song, no doubt part of the convoluted storyline that was discarded. Then a complete version of Meilenberg Joys, only briefly heard in the film itself, where Louis and his group are seen on a bandwagon. The lineup includes his old colleagues Kid Ory and Zooty Singleton, plus Barney Bigard, who was to become an integral part of his All-Stars. Louis' friend and producer-to-be, George Avakian, came back from doing his bit in the Far Eastern Theatre and witnessed changes happening in the Armstrong camp.
Well, my first experience was hearing, I think, a broadcast that Louis did with an all-star group that Rudy Blesh had organized for a series of radio programs on Saturdays.
Interestingly, Louis was teamed on that 1947 broadcast with both black and white musicians from New Orleans, including Albert Nicholas and Pops Foster, Danny Barker, Baby Dodds from his King Oliver days, and, from the old New Orleans Rhythm Kings, trombonist George Brunis. Russian-born Chicagoan Art Hodes was on piano. In those days, certainly in Armstrong's hometown, the redneck fraternity would have frowned on such integration, but there were no barriers among jazzmen. Louis looked back on his relationship with Brunis some years later.
Because any time Brunis that could play in my presence, he was happy.
Yeah.
And he made a statement, I'll play with Louis Armstrong any day, gladly.
Here's 219 Blues, and besides Brunis, another white admirer of Louis is playing alongside him, Wild Bill Davison on cornet.
Now the 219 took my baby away. I said the 219 took my baby away. But the 217 will bring her back someday. Now you take the TNT and I'll take the LNN. I said you take the TNT and I'll take the LNN. And when I get my baby back, she'll never get away from me again.
Louis had done a concert which I didn't attend at Town Hall, and that was the beginning of the Armstrong All-Stars, because Ernie Anderson, the producer of the concert, had gone to Joe Glazer. He wanted Louis just to play with the Eddie Condon musicians that were already hired for this concert. And so he worked out this kind of plot. He went to Joe Glazer with a check, very important first step, and said, I'd like to hire Louis for this concert at Town Hall. And he had the check written out for the fee for the entire band, which he had determined in advance. And he said, however, I'm going to give you tickets for the musicians who are to sit in the audience and enjoy the concert, because I'm paying them, but they don't have to play. I don't want them to play. I want Louis to play alone. Well, Glazer agreed to it because he made sure to grab the check fast. And the idea that Anderson put on the table before Glazer was the kind of thing that was perfect for the time. His thesis was, apart from the fact that Louis should play with a small group, he told Glazer, look, you can't be making much money paying this big band, and people are coming to hear Armstrong. Put him in the kind of setting that he used to be in, to save a lot of money, lower transportation, everything, and he was sure that it would work, and it did. So Armstrong never again had a big band.
Next week we'll examine the All-Stars' sometimes controversial years and hear Louis in some more unusual settings. For now here's a neglected item with what seems to be an ad-libbed vocal where Armstrong is once more reflecting on his early days with his friend Joe Oliver.
land of beautiful queens, the prettiest gals you ever seen. They'll tell you yakety, 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 yak. In New Orleans, my hometown, you know, the land of the red beans. Don't forget those ham and greens down in New Orleans.